Hello, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to open the second day of DeFi Summit, and we're going to start DeFi Summit with very exciting topic about scaling DeFi products. We have very diverse and very interesting lineup of speakers today, and I would like to start with introductions. Jake, let's start with you. Can you introduce yourself and tell us more about DeFi products you're working on?
Yeah, thanks. I'm Jake with Cube. My background is in physics engineering, but I spent most of my career in volatility modeling and options trading, mostly in traditional finance, building trading systems, trading on trading floors like New York Stock Exchange, CBOE. But I've been full-time in crypto since 2018 with a registered SEC, CFTC registered volatility fund. But yeah, I've had the benefit of seeing a lot of the financial markets and trading markets that DeFi can fix. So I'm eternally optimistic for having seen some of the bad sides of markets for far too long. I'm here today to speak a little bit about Cube, which is a modular L1 with a multi-chain architecture that we just launched mainnet. This is an L1 that came out of the Huobi Innovation Labs, and we're looking forward to Cosmos compatibility by Q4 and bringing in lots of just integration partners to help build kind of the interoperable and sort of cross-chain compatibility future of DeFi. Happy to be here. Thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. Sheldon, up to you.
Sure. I'm Sheldon Dearr from Octopus Network. I've been in the space for quite a few years. Was really happy to just sort of give away my time for free, be helpful in whatever way I can as a researcher and incident responder. But I have a professional background from formal IT. I've worked for a lot of the Fortune 500, either directly or with them as my client. And I chose to leave that space this year purposefully because the models that they put forward, the business strategy they put forward, the way they pursue problem solving is radically different than we do in crypto, right? So I'm really happy to be in my role as technical lead at Octopus Network. My responsibility is to help people build up their Web3 projects with independent blockchains. And those are through services that we provide through Near Protocol. That's not a service offering, like you're not paying us for it. You pay the ecosystem operators for it. So we really like Web3 projects that are sort of changing the way economics work. And that's part of the challenge with DeFi is to, manage yield, is to manage speculation and incentive that retail is looking for, or that larger investors are looking for. I think there's much more to it than there was, just a couple of years ago, or even just during DeFi summer. So we're helping people build their own chains that come up with their own trustless bridge, that come up with their own mint and burn, that include IBC library that isn't quite so friendly or easy to use yet. But I'll be giving presentations later this year to help people turn up that functionality, because we really believe, also similar to Cube, I assume, that IBC is a really useful standard, that it should be in more than one ecosystem. So yeah, excited to be joining y'all about some DeFi discussions. Absolutely.
Great. Thank you so much. And Ashley, tell us more about yourself and the company you represent.
Sure. Hi, I'm Ashley. I'm the Education Programs Manager at Metis. So I have never really had a background in crypto until I joined earlier this year. So I started in January with the team. Before that, I've always been an educator. So I've taught a lot of different disciplines in public education and private community colleges. And I felt really trapped by the system, but I felt really passionate about wanting to do something education related. So I reached out to Crypto Chicks, which is a nonprofit organization that's run by our founder, Elena Sinelnikova. And they were looking for a community educator. So I talked with her and she was like, actually, I think, Metis could really benefit from having some education on the team. So I joined, and one of our focus at Metis, we're a layer 2 scaling solution on Ethereum, but we really want to make blockchain accessible for people. So my job revolves around just introducing blockchain and Web3 to newbies and kind of explaining how the different mechanisms work. But as an organization, we're really focused on building Web3 solutions for Web2 businesses and kind of like making these like broader structures a little more individual centric, so people can have a little more autonomy and not only what they do in the space, but how they operate a Web3 business.
Great, fantastic. And let's go straight to the point. I would like to ask you about growth hacks you learned that worked for DeFi space. How should we scale DeFi projects? Let's start with Jake. Can you tell us about growth hacks you learned?
Yeah, thank you. No, I think it's a great question. I think the simple answer for me, I think having seen just in the era of open source, like I think you're only as good as your community, and so I think just making these systems satisfying and easy to use is kind of the quickest way to a growth hack. I think you can do a DPoS fork, and if you make the most satisfying thing to use, I think you can be one of the most successful projects even without having a ton of novel tech behind it. Just kind of the standing on the shoulders of giants metaphor. I think if you can just make DeFi satisfying, because it can be pretty complicated for the person who is just encountering it for the first time. So I would say my simple answer to that would just be make DeFi more satisfying. Like I would give an example where if anyone's gone from that first experience of just the equivalent of market order trading on Uniswap V1 to that kind of how satisfying something like 1inch was, where you were kind of able to have that first aha moment of making trading slightly more efficient in DeFi. And then I would say my most recent aha moment in the satisfying space was using Rango, and give them a shout out, which is a cross chain aggregator. So they'll do fastest optimal route to go from say Tether on Ethereum mainnet to say USDC on Cosmos, right, and connect all the wallets, and you have it's kind of like the kayak of cross chain aggregators. And I think when you kind of feel how satisfying that is versus opening 1,000 different approval interactions, it's you can kind of see that that's where it's going.
Right, I absolutely agree with you. Solving real pain point is the main key to success of any project, especially in DeFi space. Sheldon, what is your opinion about growth hacks and scaling strategies, especially from technological point of view?
I'll reply and agree to some degree that the UX is extremely important. The sort of like the feel of the experience. I agree that has some value, but I think we're entering an era where UX is not necessarily more template, but less custom. So to me, that means that I do want to see more under the hood. I want to know more about, not necessarily what makes your project the most innovative thing in the world, but like, what is your difference? There's this phrase that comes from traditional IT security sales, as I know it. The phrase is battle card. I ask projects for this all the time. Hey, you want to tell me that you're reinventing this concept, or that you're, forking this, or that you're borrowing this idea and then building with this. Being able to present that vision clearly. A lot of it is just being transparent about the not necessarily the vision, but the model. There's so many DeFi projects that use so much of the same design. I think that at some point UX falls to a secondary standpoint behind the sort of the meat in a project and the product. And I think that UX is extremely valuable because that really is that first layer of, people touching it. Are they having a good time? Do they have to sign 5-6 transactions to be able to use the tool? Definitely agree that has an effect. But I think the transparency is something that's going to be more important going forward. People are asking different questions about DeFi today than they were a few years ago. Not so much that they expect DeFi projects to be these multi-year things. They're still usually pretty short throws. But that the play for compliance, the play for security, 2 years ago, the question was, have you got an audit? Who's it from? I think that question is evolving into what was audited and what do you guys have as part of your system that makes you you. So in concise language, I think being able to present and really shine your best idea, the thing that you feel is the substance of your project, I think that's the thing to do, whether that's in documentation, a how-to video, or just an infographic that explains. I think that's the sauce.
Very interesting. Following on that, I do believe that transparency and in software development and open source is really important when you scale DeFi projects. And at MintyCode, we are building a community for software creators where we are building new decentralized open source. So that's why I completely agree with you and support your view on the way how we should scale DeFi and any project in blockchain space. Ashley, can you tell us more about your growth hacks, maybe on educational side? So how do we achieve this growth from a community point of view?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Jake and Sheldon both had great points. To just add on that, I think the more education you can offer to your community, the more trust you're going to build. And we kind of like to pretend like trust isn't a thing in Web3, but it's really important. It's a human aspect, and I don't think we operate outside of it. So being able to teach people not only like, here, I'll show you what's under the hood, but like, here's how it works, and I can help you understand. If I go onto a DeFi platform and it's really easy for me to click a button and make a transaction, but I don't really know what I've done, then there's a boundary there that's going to impede mass adoption. So I think the more education we can offer, the more responsive we can be to feedback, the more we can let the community know we're here to answer your questions and teach you how things are going. But also, if you don't like the way something's working, or if you're confused about something, we're here to hear that and let you know that we're listening and we're responsive, and that it's not like an insular project. We're collaborating with the community. We're working with other protocols. I think being able to remain in that mindset of not an us versus them, but we're all in this together. I know, as a cliche as that sounds, but yeah, I think that can be a really helpful way to build and grow.
Great, completely agree with you. And we definitely, when we want to build DeFi products and launch a new company, we want to grow our product from 0 users to millions of users, and definitely we encounter many challenges. Jay, can you walk us through challenges in building DeFi products you encountered, and how did you overcome these challenges?
Yeah, I think I'm gonna take kind of more of the user adoption standpoint on this scaling answer, but I think Sheldon will probably want to to push back more on the tech side still, which I definitely appreciate. Yeah, I think we are still in this very early phase of kind of mass adoption of DeFi. If you look at kind of daily active users and active kind of transaction counts per L1, you'll kind of realize how small this space is still. I think Solana has something like still under 1 million daily active addresses, which I think that surprises me every time that I see that. And I think it gets even kind of lower as you go kind of down the line. But I still think that the scaling challenges are making things that can exist, that can be experiences that are sort of in the background for lay people and users that are already doing things that that are going to just be doing things in DeFi that they would normally be doing in the real world and just do it better, right? Like, I think it's pretty easy to see like the remittance case for DeFi, or I guess crypto in general, and how that can be, kind of an orders of magnitude better on fees, speed, and accessibility for people. And that's something that I think is kind of like maybe one of the first obvious scalable use cases for crypto and DeFi to some degree too. Is just something that can exist in the background, like just sending money back to relatives without paying egregious fees and not having to wait for the bank to open or the currency relayer to open. So yeah, I think it's really just kind of for the scaling part. User adoption comes with building things that can seamlessly integrate into people's lives without them fully knowing that they are necessarily DeFi per se.
Interesting. Ashley, what do you think about challenges, especially in educating masses about blockchain?
Well, I think there's probably the general feeling for people who don't really understand much about Web3 in general is like crypto is a scam. And they just see these like headlines and, when market things are not going well, people get afraid and they think, this is not for me. And so I think the barrier for most people is understanding that there's so much more going on in Web3 than, tokens that they're seeing on the news. And so when we can kind of demonstrate the bridge between like the systemic issues that people face in their everyday lives with solutions that are being built in Web3, and communicate that this is like a collaborative and ongoing process of development, not like we figured it all out, here it is, just, jump right in. But just letting people know that there's more going on here than what meets the eye, and it's ongoing development. The more collaboration that we can have, I think, between different protocols and between different networks, the sooner we can boost that interoperability and make it a very like smooth and user-friendly experience. So I think just like getting into people's homes and explaining to them, there's more here than what meets the eye. This is a solution to problems that, we're all working together to fix.
Great, interesting. And Sheldon, I would like to ask you more about system architecture and what type of protocols do you need to choose to ensure that your DeFi project is scalable?
I think that the majority of people who come to crypto, whether they're touching Solidity or something else, they end up looking at flexibility first. So that's my sort of response to what should be looked for is a lowered level of flexibility than the base level of everything is possible. The composable DeFi model, that phrase, we hear about it a lot, but it's not really sensitive to the compute requirements, the energy requirements. It's not to say that Ethereum is inefficient. That's not true at all. JavaScript as a language is not designed to be machine level efficient. So if you want machine level efficiency, i.e. high-speed trading, automated trading, liquidity pools that take certain actions based on oracles, it makes a lot of sense to me to say that you want high flexibility in some areas, but in some other areas it makes sense to effectively hybridize the operation. Easy example, chain in our ecosystem coming online is specifically for off-chain order execution, where it's an on-chain order that is executed through a book off-chain. Is that something that works for everyone? No, but the model of taking the most compute-intensive thing that you have and saying, okay, how sustainable can I make this? How error-prone is this? What is the latency when I'm trying to make this make sense? How long does it actually take to execute these operations? I think that'll usually lead people to sort of this, computer science 101 grade realization, which is that things that are designed to do everything can do anything, but don't do one thing specifically well. as much as something else that is specialized to do so. You know, I can use ping packets to make HTTP requests. I can do all kinds of silly things over a network that I'm not supposed to do that can function, but don't make sense for my computer. Don't really make sense, especially when you're talking about hundreds or thousands of operations in a grouping. So I think that the tough answer to DeFi scalability and technologies is purpose-built technology where it's appropriate. Customizing everything or over customizing things, it's a prohibitive cost. It's not helpful. But picking the sort of most valuable points about your product and saying, hey, what projects, what ecosystems, what L1s, you know, even what off-chain activities make the most sense to do. We're going to see a lot of Web 2, Web 3 hybridization in the future. And this is a conversation that I'm asked to have pretty frequently these days. Hey, I want to run an archival node and then do high-speed trading based off of that. And I'm not saying that I specifically support products like that, because as a cypherpunk, it makes me real sad. But as someone who's worked in the Fortune 500, I understand that business must go on. And there's going to be these sort of capital-oriented and solution-oriented discussions, which are, hey, how much am I willing to build a solution that is specific to what I'm trying to do? And what does that look like when I start? I think most projects will continue to start in that highly composable, flexible space because it is so easy to work with, and, you know, users paying gas and you scheduling what gas you're going to pay for certain operations. That's a plenty healthy start, I think. But as time goes on, I'm confident that we'll see more people taking up solutions like Arbitrum, considering their own chain in products like Cosmos or in our ecosystem. I think that there's really a reasonable use case to say that DeFi, when it needs to scale, has to exist at a higher level of efficiency than it did during DeFi summer, just because there's still reasonable sentiment, speculation, and excitement. But in order to, fit an extra, 100 million users through these kinds of protocols, you don't just need healthy queuing and, good systems that can actually receive those literal messages, those little packets over there of the internet. You also need the back-end systems that are ordering things, that are processing things to, not necessarily be scalable, but to be manageable as you grow. So I think most organizations in DeFi are going to scale in little bursts. They'll say, hey, we're willing to think about what 10x throughput looks like for our protocol today. 100x is a little too far out. We don't want to plan for that. That would be more money that we need to spend to, sustain for the next few years.
Very interesting. Jake, what do you think about the right choice of system architecture? Do you agree or disagree with Sheldon?
Yeah, I think I agree with most of that. I think kind of in the first round of L1s, the first generation of blockchains, primarily focused on kind of the decentralization and security and not so much the scalability. And so we've kind of seen, for better or for worse, that L1s be sort of victims of their own success, and seeing like gas wars and things like that happen, where, in most systems you think, okay, well, when there's a lot of activity and the thing's working, it should get, better and more fun to be using, but it becomes, harder and harder for the successful, applications or protocol or, things building on those L1s to survive. I think if you just look at like GameFi, for instance, like most games that were, arguably sort of successful from a, transaction perspective or creating a lot of, sort of vibrancy, didn't stick with the L1 that they launched on, right? They either built their own or they went on a, subnets or a, completely different chain where the incentives were better. I think all of that, I think seeing, kind of that scalability, just bottleneck happen, is the same reason when in DeFi we see, layer 2s and rollups and things like that. I think we're sort of making concessions now that are kind of like modular thinking, and I think that we all sort of agree at this stage that sort of not all block space should be necessarily treated equally or created equally. You shouldn't necessarily have a free NFT mint competing for the same block space at the same time as somebody, withdrawing, $1 billion worth of liquidity from a DeFi protocol, right? Like those should, like as Sheldon said, those should probably live in different silos and have different tuning for, whether they prefer security or throughput or just speed. So I think kind of the and I've been following the Octopus network for almost a year, and so I'm a big fan of what they've, the way that they think about architecture, and I think that it's kind of a modular thinking one is going to be the future of architecture.
Great, very interesting. That was very interesting discussion. I'm afraid we are running out of time, and my last question will be for you to reflect about past of DeFi space and think about future, and maybe summarize in one word or at least one sentence the future of DeFi space, especially from the perspective of scalability. Maybe we can start with Sheldon.
Happy to kick it off. So I think the future of DeFi space, I didn't quite use this word, but it's the right fit, is modular to a degree. I think it's both modular, specialized, and starting as composable. So I think the long-standing future that we're going to see is that L1s like Ethereum or other EVMs, even if they're L2s, we're going to see projects start there, build up their, maintain community, effectively, rest on the shoulders of the people who support them, and then based on that community be deciding a next move. So I think that it should be considered a normal thing that when you're a young entity that you do have basically, entirely temporary infrastructure, everything is running on a Ethereum virtual machine, right? That doesn't require physical servers from anyone. But I think that over time, what will become natural is that there's a sort of air of impermanence and freshness to someone who's launching on an L1, who's building their product out in an environment that's familiar to everyone, where there's available liquidity, TVL, etc. And over time, their community will push towards different solutions, whether that is a subnet or Cosmos ecosystem or a different sort of app chain solution. I think that is the future. The same way that Jake was alluding to, like Ronin, needing to pull off and have its own chain. It's unfortunate what happened to them. But that's the kind of reason why we at Octopus are so focused on app chain technologies and standards that make sense. We don't push those standards out, but I think that other people will find them useful. And that sort of shared experience without direct experience will make things quite easy. The learning from someone else's past, the forking someone else's code, we're all a little bit more comfortable doing that than just straight, hey, this is completely new. So I think that I'm reasonably hopeful in saying that there's a different level of responsibility that comes with, let's plan with a temporary space and then move into more permanence. And I'm really excited to see more of that.
Great. I think that was a great ending of our discussion about future of DeFi. And I would like to thank our speakers. Thank you so much for your time and your insightful thoughts. And thank you for organizers of DeFi Summit.